Are you a human being having a human experience, maybe trying to avoid some pains and have some pleasures and
I thought you were
just
gonna say planes. Trying to avoid travel altogether.
which yeah,
Yeah, we
exactly.
did.
Well, you're in luck because today's episode we're going to be talking about life, our lives, life in general, just a free form episode. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
So, Danny, tell
Yeah.
me what's been going on this week.
Hmm. Well, as you know, no, we've been pretty busy, both of us, I think, doing a lot of different things. So it's been kind of hectic, which can make it hard. But I was telling you before, though, actually, I was pretty happy yesterday, last night. I did have like a mild panic attack because I was trying to work late at night. And I forgot that it was like daylight savings just happened. So like fell back. So it was like technically like an hour later, than normal, or felt, whatever. You guys figure it out. Anyway, and so like I started to get like I was getting like really upset and like stressed, and then I realized like, oh, it was really like an hour later than it is, and I would never work that late normally. So like that was the problem. And then I woke up this morning, I felt fine because I was actually just tired. And like it's funny, but I caught it really fast this time, and I was proud of myself because I didn't like let it spiral. And that's been happening more and more. I feel like that I've been getting better and better at like identifying these things and not letting it get out of hand.
Yeah, well done. I mean, that's really it's really difficult because it sneaks up on you. Like
Yeah.
if if you knew going into yesterday that like, oh, daylight savings happened, you're going to be tired and crankier a little bit earlier, then when that feeling came up, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is that. Duh, I just need to
I
go
mean,
to
to be
sleep.
fair, I should have
But
known that. Because,
but
like,
it happens once a year
yeah,
because
yeah, it does.
the other time you have more energy. So it happens once a year. So unless you write a note in your calendar for next year,
Yeah,
same thing
no.
will
Well,
happen.
I think they're stopping it next year too, which is the funny thing.
Oh, that'll
I
be
thought,
cool.
well, here's it. I thought they were stopping it this year, and then I guess they weren't because like a lot of people thought that apparently. So I think next year they're actually stopping it. I hope they do because it's annoying. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, it was cool, and like it does sneak up on you, like you said, because like I can actually like last night I remember I was on my computer working, and like I just felt this like in the back of my mind I was like, there's like those voices of like "Oh, I can't do this. This is too much. It's too hard. Meh." And then like I just stopped and I was like, why am I thinking? And like, but that's the thing, like stopping and asking yourself when you notice it, because I think most of the time we just ignore it, and then by the time we notice it, the voice is so loud that it's like overwhelming.
hmm Dude, that's really cool. That's very similar to what happened to me recently, where I did a whole bunch of work that I needed to do, and like that just kind of like tired me out
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, everything. And then I went to go do some stuff that I wanted to do, but I was already carrying that like exhaustion,
Yeah.
and the stuff that I wanted to do was more difficult than I was expecting, and I couldn't figure it out. And all of a sudden, I went down the rabbit hole of I'm never going to figure this out. I'm never going to be good enough. What am I doing here? And it just like for like 2 hours, I was just in a funk, and then I was just
Yeah.
like, hang on. I all I have to do today is get through the day. Like that's it.
Yeah. Dude, it's so funny. It's funny too. It's like I always like wonder this because like it happens to all of us, like who the hell are we trying to prove things to? Like, like who are we trying to prove things to? 'Cause I don't know half the time. I don't know who I'm trying. Is it
Dude,
me? Is it somebody
I'm
else? Like,
I'm
I
st-
don't know.
I've had a realization recently that I'm still trying to impress my grandfather who died 10 years ago. Like
Yeah,
when I
that makes sense.
when I was a kid, like never I could never do anything that was good enough for him. He was like super intelligent and he made him
He's
I
like,
don't
you're
know
an
if things
idiot.
were yeah, basically. And I don't know if things were very easy for him, but he made it seem like everything was super effortless for him. And because I had to work hard for it, I was an idiot. And
Well, it could have been
granted,
too
he
that he was
probably didn't.
also like, how much older than you?
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, he probably didn't say that stuff, but that's the feeling that I internalized from it. So like, I still every once in a while, I'm like struggling so hard to do some stuff, and I catch myself, and I'm like, I don't need to impress him. He's dead. Like,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
funny when we are kids that we do think that way. Like when somebody, even I doubt he probably didn't say anything explicitly to you, but I'm sure that's how you interpret it because you wanted to impress him, probably. And so
hmm
every time it didn't work out exactly like you saw him doing it, even though you didn't do that
Yeah.
stuff all your life. So it's like, what do you expect?
hmm Yeah, and he likes. I mean, he studied really hard stuff. He was in the top of his field, and for me, it was like super hard to stay at the top. But I don't know.
It's funny though, because that's the kind of stuff that we do carry with us that we don't even realize half the time, you know? Like, what are we like, I mean, really, that's not because I think we usually are trying to, we usually ignore answering the questions that would actually help us. Like, who am I trying to impress? What am I running from? What am I feeling? All these things like, discomfort, we just ignore it, but that doesn't actually fix it. It just gets worse and worse and more prevalent. And it's funny because once you
Hmm.
start fixing it, it gets like easier and easier. It's amazing. You actually start working out
Yeah.
your life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I kind of know myself a little
Uh-oh. That's the slippery slope.
bit. I know, right?
Once you get there, then you get smacked upside the head. Yeah,
Yeah.
every time I start thinking that I have it figured out, I'm all of a sudden like my hackles rise. I'm like, uh-oh, watch out. Maybe I shouldn't say that. Yeah.
It's
So
nuts though.
I had an interesting week this week. I read this book called Die with Zero. So this was recommended to me because I was talking
Who wrote it?
with a friend. No idea.
Okay.
And yeah, called Die with Zero. It's the only book, it's the only
Yeah.
bestseller called Die with Zero.
Were you
Yeah.
reading it on Kindle?
Yeah.
You know what's funny, dude? When I read on Kindle, I don't know authors as well anymore, and sometimes titles because you don't see it all the time. You don't open the
Yeah.
book, you know? It's funny.
That's
Yeah, sorry.
true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, no, I almost never see the author. No idea.
Yeah, you don't. You see it at the very beginning if you're lucky, and that's it.
Huh, go
Anyway.
figure. Yeah, so it was an interesting book because like I've been battling this in my mind for a long time. Like I was in hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. And then I've read every personal finance book under the sun, which basically stress don't spend any money and save all your money and die with the most money. And so so this
Win
book
the
was really
game. Win that game.
win the game by accumulating as much money by the time you die by sacrificing your
Yeah.
life experiences. Yeah. And so it was kind of like it didn't I get the idea behind it, but it didn't quite make sense to me because you don't need to die with money. And so
Nope.
that was the premise of this book was this guy's an engineer and so they study efficiencies and he's like what's the most efficient answer to this problem is that we have our life and we have this money and like this is the crazy thing. So one of the big things from the book, everybody's like but you can't die with zero because you need to leave money to your kids and you need to leave you know charities and all of these things. He had a very interesting point for that. So based on statistics by whoever handles like uh wills and stuff like that,
Mhm.
the average age when somebody inherits is 60 years old when they inherit money.
Yeah.
That's about 30 years after when it would be most beneficial for them.
Because most people
So,
live a lot longer now, so it's like, yeah, you're not getting it until you're way late in life.
yeah, so by that point, it's already way too late for you to do anything with it, way too late for it to positively impact your life. So he's like, hey, listen, like, figure it if you think it's worthwhile for people to have money, like for your kids to have money, for charities to have money, do it when it's appropriate for them. And it turns out like the most impactful time in your life for when you have money is roughly around your 30s because you have to balance uh, wealth, you have to balance time, and you have to balance wealth. Oh, health. No, health, wealth, time. Yeah, something like that. Anyways,
That
because
sounds
yeah,
reasonable.
yeah, in your 30s, you're kind of strapped for time, especially if you have a family. But your health is at its peak, pretty close to its peak, and your wealth is kind of starting to grow. But you can get the most bang for your buck in terms of value from your experiences around that time. Basically, from
Well,
when
because you're
you're
like
about
physically able to do the things you might want to do. I get what
Mhm.
you're saying. Okay, okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
from 20 to 60 is like the ideal time for experiences in life because before then you don't really value it as much, and after then you just don't want to do anything anymore. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and so like so it was a very interesting book, and it kind of changed my concept of stuff because I've been going through like as much as I'm an abundance mindset type of person, like deep inside of me, there's a very scarcity
yeah,
mindset person that's just like terrified of being in debt again. And so it's like,
yeah. When you've been egregiously in debt, it's fucking scary to be in debt again. It sucks. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I know the feeling.
yeah. And it's just like a lot of things I haven't done because I'm like, well, it's spending money and I won't I won't die with the most money in the bank. So Is that
Yeah.
winning?
It's so weird too that we do that, right? Because like you can't take it with you. Okay, like I'll give you one of the things I do. I mean, I do can't help worrying about sometimes is like, my partner, she's significantly younger than me by a decent amount. So like I do worry, like chance statistically, I'm going to die first, put it that way, right? So, I do worry about that because I don't want her to be in a position where something's, financially bad because, whatever. Like, so, but that's not like, I don't need a lot for that. You know what I mean? And that's just planning. It's not like I'm not trying to leave stuff behind. I'm trying to make sure the life we built together is still there, essentially, for her. You know what I mean? And I think I'm not trying to just accumulate a bunch of money and just put it there. That's stupid.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny that like you mentioned that too, because that's an interesting thing that all these people seem to want to have the most, but then you're just caught in a race for the most that you can't use. And then
Hmm.
to maintain that wealth, you're working all the time. It's stupid.
Right. And the thing is, all this money that's left in the bank or that you give to your kids, this was your life that you spent working. The majority of people in America, a job that they don't enjoy to
Yeah,
accumulate. So you traded time, your precious life and potential life experiences doing a job you didn't like so that you could pass on money or something like that.
what's funny? I never understood when I see all these people that like, like when they're like, especially like younger, like 28 or whatever, then they like make something in like tech or something and they sell it and they make a bunch of money. I'm like, I never understood. I'm like, why do you even bother? Like, keep doing stuff. Go do things you want to do. Like, go away, go do things you want to do. You have the money. Yeah, you can still do projects and stuff, sure. Because I don't doubt people will still want to work and have that value in their lives. But like, you don't need to be working 60 hours, 90 hours a week. Like
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk sleeping at fucking Twitter when he bought it. Like, dude, why? Like, you know
Well,
what I
for
mean?
most
Like,
people, it's an addiction.
yeah,
I,
I
I
think,
was
yeah.
listening to some book. It was a book on trauma, and it was talking about people who had like very unsteady childhoods where they couldn't really rely on their parents, and a lot of them turned into either like gamblers or very strong business people
It
because that
makes
was
sense,
like
right?
yeah
Yeah.
they didn't feel safe, and that was like the one way that they could feel safe.
Yeah. Well, you see
But
that a lot
another
of times there are people that have a lot of money. They came from, very poor, difficult backgrounds because, it's a motivation, right? To
Mhm.
to kind of get that. Yeah.
So another thing from this book. So part of the book. So like in order to most efficiently optimize your dying with zero or close to zero, you have to know how long you're supposed to live. So
Huh.
he recommends doing a whole bunch of these
Go
longevity
see
calculators.
oh, I thought you were gonna go see a psychic. Sorry, go ahead. What were we gonna say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I did a number of longevity calculators online and it freaking blew my mind. Like it said like the majority of them said I'm going to live to be 95. And I was just like,
Wow.
holy cow, what am I
That's a
supposed to do with
long
that much more
time.
time? I know.
Jesus.
I know. I considered I was like halfway done my life already, but holy cow.
Yeah,
So
I don't want to do this. I'll find out
I,
when I get there.
I was like, I need to change some habits or something like that soon so that, oh my goodness. Because yeah, what do you
We know it's
it really I had like a mini existential crisis. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all this time? Like the time that I've had so far has felt like forever. What am I supposed to do with the rest of it?
I am ready for a freaking rest. Now, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's funny. I remember reading a while ago, like they were saying, like when they initially set the retirement age in Social Security, people generally didn't make it much longer than like a couple years, few years, maybe a decade after that. But now
Hmm.
it's so common for people to live 2, 3 decades after that time that it's like one, the system's totally strained, but also like even though people might plan for retirement, they don't end up not having enough because there's inflation, costs go up, and like they don't really realize that like it's like you just don't have to be alive that long. It's like crazy. Yeah, we do
Hmm.
live quite a long time, and we keep improving that. So yeah,
Holy cow. Yeah,
it's
so
crazy.
I gotta find
95 is a
some new
long,
hobbies or
that's a long
something.
time, right?
Whew,
Yeah. When
man.
people are like,
But
"Do anyone live forever?" It's like, not really. It
no,
sounds like a
no.
lot of work.
But you know what? On the other hand, like with a lot of the coding and programming stuff that we're doing, because we talk oftentimes how it takes like 5 to 10 years to get really good at it. All of a sudden, when I was living till 95, I was like, well, that's worth it because that means I'll have another long time to actually do it.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Like I don't know. I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like like we're both in our just got into our 40s not too long ago. And like
Hmm.
it's
Barely
interesting.
look a day over 30.
I know, right? I still like spring chicken. But like it's funny because like, what is it? Damn it. Oh yeah. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, so like it's funny because like I used to think like that was so old, when you're younger you always do. But then when you're there, you realize like, it's not. And like we're still in good health. And we can still do lots of things. Like, you still have time to do so much. I think that was like the biggest thing that helped me get over the problem of like changing careers and stuff and doing something new was that the reality was like, I still have so much time. Like I can do anything. Like if it's great. So it's like you might as well take advantage of it. And I think going back to what you were saying about the book, like I think that makes sense. Like this mentality of just saving and working yourself to death when you're in your prime doesn't make sense because you're not actually getting those experiences and things that you enjoy. I mean, they've done so many studies that have found that like people prefer experiences over objects, like all the time. Yeah, the memories are more enjoyable later on. Like for instance, like how often do you think back to like when you got the new iPhone 6 generations ago and smile, right? You don't care. How often do you think back to a great vacation you took, with your partner or a great just experience you had? It didn't even, it could be like a one night thing, but you keep thinking back to it because it was so fun and you have that joy over and over again? Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
I got that.
yeah,
And actually, the experiences grow in value the more you think of them
yeah.
and the more you discuss them with other people.
Memory's a funny
Uh,
thing, because we even like we manipulate it and like keeps getting better and better as we go. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah. So, anyways, that was a really interesting book. And then the same guy who recommended that book was talking about the book 4,000 Weeks, which is time management for mortals. It's kind of a book on like how to do stuff with your life instead of
It's
just working,
4,000
I
weeks
think.
how long we have?
Yeah, that's like the average human life.
Oh, okay. I didn't feel like doing the math in my
Yo,
head right now.
actually, check this out. So, anyways, based on my life expectancy, around the time of my next birthday, I'll have approximately 20,000 days left to live.
That's cool. Still a lot of
Yeah,
days,
how
though.
about that? Yeah, how
That's
about that?
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird when you put them in numbers, isn't it? Because it kind of sounds like a lot, but it kind of doesn't at the same time.
Hmm.
You know, Probably did more. If you went back like 300 years ago when we didn't talk about billions and trillions all the time, it probably would have sounded like a lot more. Yeah.
20,000.
Holy cow. Still sounds like a lot of days, though. It still is
I
a
know,
lot of
right?
days. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, my goodness. Um, yeah, so anything, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, I
Anything else going
generally,
on?
let's think. I've been trying to just like worry less about stuff that I think it's not like I don't know. It's
Mm,
funny. I know I had this like thought. This was a couple weeks ago. It's just like I mean, I guess I've always like worrying doesn't help anything. It never does. It's like just makes things worse exponentially. And like I've always had kind of a problem with like, just anxiety, stress, things like that, like a lot of people. And like I've just been trying not to worry about stuff anymore. Like it's not worth like it'll get done. Like it doesn't matter what it is, like not in the sense of like there's a difference between like, like not worrying about something and just not doing it because you just don't want to, then just don't do it. But like you're still doing things, so it will get done. Just not worrying about it, and like we were trusting that things are going to happen and turn out right if I put in the work and do things right. And it's been very helpful. It's still hard. Don't get me wrong. Like I mean, I still definitely worry, but like it's been very helpful to keep me kind of like more even keeled, I think, and just in a better mood generally. And then I'm more apt to get things done. Well.
yeah, worrying is a really nasty habit.
It sucks. It sucks. It
Yeah,
totally
and
sucks.
it's such like a lying habit because it promises that by doing this thing that's not good for you in the moment, it'll make your life better in the future, and it just
It's
doesn't.
it's like a weird like a narcissistic thing too of like I'm so important, I gotta work with this and that, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like I don't have time for
Hmm.
you, I gotta do this and that, everything. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I just keep reminding myself that like all the people who are dead, like
Yeah.
all these idols that we've all idolized. Like for instance, I was walking today, someone was carrying like a Louis Vuitton shopping bag, and I was
Nice.
like, okay, you get probably insane street credit or Instagram credit, whatever, for having that shopping bag around with you.
Who cares?
But who the heck is Louis Vuitton? Is this guy still alive?
Yep.
And yeah, and you know, and it's just crazy that like we go around wearing some dead person's name.
Yeah. It is weird, isn't it? and thinking
Hmm.
that that elevates us.
Hmm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
funny. That's the other thing. Like, it's one thing to be like, like I totally understand. Like, if you need a bag for something, like wanting a nice bag, it's gonna like last and do what you need it to do, right? That's fine. And like getting value out of it, but like just getting it because the brand is so funny because it's like everybody knows it's all you bought it for. Like it's just a statement of your value. That's all it is. It's so funny.
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
validation. Look at me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, like in this book, it talked about how like all the money and everything towards the end of your life is completely worthless. Like you just have like that when you're on your deathbed, all the money in the
Yeah.
world isn't going to do you anything. Somebody
Nope.
you could win the lottery on your deathbed and it's completely worthless.
Look at
So
Steve
it,
Jobs, dude. Didn't help him, man.
no.
Like I mean, it doesn't matter who you are. Like there is
Hmm.
limits to what people can do.
Yeah. I've been so this is something that happened this week. I've been contemplating reading that Walter Isaacson biography of Elon Musk because I was like, how many books of very influential people have I read when they're still alive? So I've read like Will Smith's biography,
Did
maybe
this
some
guy
other
work
one.
with him? Like it was like
No, so
closely like
he's the guy who did the really popular biography of Steve Jobs. He
oh
just did
okay.
one of Elon Musk.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah. And so I just figured maybe I should because like I read all these books of these icons of past ages,
Yeah.
like Roosevelt and Rockefeller and Marcus Aurelius and all these different people from like who are dead. And I'm like, well, this guy's still alive. So maybe it would be a different experience to read this book, but I'm like, I really don't care about his
I
life.
don't at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
think
it's
there could be
hard.
something to gain from reading it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would have said the same thing though about like Franklin and stuff in his time. Like I don't want to read a book
Hmm.
about that guy. I see his stupid face all over and his dumb almanacs. Like I don't
Yeah, right?
like, it's funny. It's probably the case though. I always wonder too when people write those biographies, because good biographers are very good, and they'll do a lot of research and they get into a lot of different things and they get access to stuff sometimes. But I always wonder how much like different the story would be given from the own person's mouth. Like, because a lot of times biographers will focus on the facts of the situation and stuff rather than like intent, things like that. And like, our own memory lies to us. So it would be interesting to see.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's funny. I think it is funny. That whole money thing is very funny because like people just like, I remember in grad school when I was getting my master's, I had a friend, because a lot of people get a master's in philosophy, then go into law because it's a good combination to have. And he was going into law, so he's going to take the LSATs and with that. I was like, oh, that's cool. Dude, what are your plans? And he's like, well, I'm going to, try to work really hard, like it's a lot of work at first, like, 60, 70 hours sometimes a week, and then get a blah, blah, blah. And he's like, but then I hope I'll be able to retire when I'm like this age or whatever. I'm like, what about all that time from then till now, like from now till you retire? Like, what are you going to do? Like, it just always confused me because like that mindset of like, I'm going to work as much as I can, make as much as I can, and then when I retire, it's like, but you might die when you're working, first of all. Second of all, what the hell are you gonna do? You're not gonna have any hobbies, you're not gonna do anything. Like, it's like just seems crazy to me. Like to not want to do stuff that you also enjoy. It's like we forgot that we have a whole life. Because
Hmm.
yeah, we can get anything done if we focus on one thing. That's true. And we can totally like ignore everything else, but like that doesn't mean you're gonna be happy too. Like you have to find that balance, and that's the hard part.
I mean, it's kind of funny when you think about it in different areas. Like, let's say somebody was like, I'm just going to cook a billion brownies. A billion brownies. Why? Who are you going to feed
Down
them
the
to? No,
most brownies,
I'm going to
dude.
cook a billion brownies and just keep them in my room. And it's
Yeah,
like, you're freaking nuts. But people do that with money.
yeah. And then they buy, it's so funny. Yeah, it's like it's just really weird. I can't imagine anything has value too when you have that much money. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mm-mm.
it must devalue everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
Yep. Okay. Well,
Hey,
I
that's
think
good.
that's all for me.
All right. It's been a busy week.
Yeah, it has. I know.
It has.
Definitely, I getting some rest, like
Yes.
noticing when I'm pushing too hard and just stopping and taking a step back, not being too critical on myself and just getting some rest. That's been helpful.
Dude, the sheer difference. It was funny because I had two nights where the first night I did not sleep well. I had like a cold, so I was really congested. I kept waking up. Um, so I didn't sleep well. And then the next night I slept great. I slept like 10 hours because I needed it. Dude, the difference in how I felt that like immediately in the morning was so funny. And like, normally when I'm not paying attention, I'd be like, oh, I feel miserable, blah, blah, blah. But like, I was just tired, and like I just needed rest. That's all. Like, it's not that hard to
Hmm.
figure out.
Yeah, we are funny little creatures.
We are very, very stupid
Yeah, I can just.
creatures.
Yeah. Actually, okay, so last thing. I was listening to this book and he was talking about conditioning, like Pavlov's conditioning,
Ah, the old
the
dogs. Yeah.
dogs salivating, that stuff. But he's like another more modern term for this is programming. And I was like, that's kind of interesting because maybe we are a computer program and
Could be.
yeah. And it just shows itself in classical conditioning. Yeah.
And when we do program ourselves, think about it, dude. Like, when people go work at a new office and they adapt to the new culture, we're very good at doing that. And there's a sense of programming there, right? You're reading the room, you're reading the situation, adjusting your behaviors. I mean, all that. It's like very easy to do. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. Another episode in the books for the Existential Stoic
Ooh,
podcast. We're in the 300s now, huh?
yeah, yeah. We are
Wow.
in the 300 and teens.
Wow. The teens.
Crazy, I know.
The
The teen
tweens.
years.
Is it
Yeah,
tweens before or after? The
I
tweens.
think I think tweens is like, isn't that like 11 to something? I don't know what the
The
hell it
tween.
is. It's
Yeah,
some.
the tweens. All right. Well,
Yeah.
anyways,
I
if
always
you
hated
enjoyed
that
it,
word though. I really don't like it.
yeah, if you enjoyed it, give us a like on Apple Podcasts. This is the Existential Stoic podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.